You've been told to seek answers outside yourself, to point fingers, assign blame, and put a face to your pain. That's what the world taught you. And often, that face wears the features of someone close, too close. But here's a truth most never dare to speak aloud. The chains holding you down aren't in someone else's hands. They're inside your mind, forged from how you made sense of what once happened. It's not about accusing. It's about facing what you've been avoiding. Peace doesn't bloom while your soul is still caught in a battle you don't even recognize. You're not fighting a person. You're fighting an imprint, a silhouette carved into your psyche long before you had words. This figure isn't flesh. It's the echo of something deeper. A voice that whispers when you're alone. A presence that lingers even when the room is empty. Carl Jung had a name for it, the mother complex. But don't be fooled, this isn't just psychology. It's a silent sentence. A need for validation that clings to your every step. A hunger no praise can feed. And worst of all, it was never even yours to begin with. It was passed down like invisible ink on your soul. You want healing? Then understand this. As long as you cling to the myth, whether you call it love or blame, you're not seeing what is real. You're chasing a projection, a story sculpted by unmet needs and silences that shouted louder than words. And here's the brutal truth. That myth still controls you. It shapes your choices, twists your relationships, and keeps you begging for a kind of safety that was never promised. You've grown in years, but inside, part of you still waits hoping someone will finally say, "You're safe now." But no one's coming. Healing isn't about her changing. It's about letting go of the fantasy that she ever will. That hurts, deeply, because it means you must stop hoping for what never came. You were told to understand her, forgive her, walk in her shoes. Maybe you tried. Maybe it helped. But nothing matters until you turn inward and realize the wound is now yours to tend. No one else will dot, and here's what few admit. Sometimes you become what you swore you wouldn't. You hear her voice in your own. You act in ways that echo her shadow. That's the trap. This isn't just an emotion. It's a pattern, a code. And unless you face it head on, you become its vessel. It plays out again and again until someone dares to break the spell. And breaking it feels like death. Not of a person, but of the hope that the past might still rewrite itself. That someday, what was missing will finally arrive. It won't. You must give yourself what was never given. Asterisk, can you make that choice? To stop chasing the love you once longed for, and instead become the source of the love you've always needed? Because that's the real threshold there's. No secret path, no one else coming. In Jungian terms, the mother is far more than a person. She's a symbol. A deep, ancient force representing warmth and beginnings, but also fear, suffocation, and the loss of self. And when that force remains fragmented inside you, it doesn't stay quiet. It spills out, tinting every relationship. Suddenly, you're not just needing connection, you're needing rescue. Not love, but rescue. And that craving? It's not love. It's absence dressed in longing. And absence is only healed through truth, through the raw courage to face what's really there. It starts when you stop placing her on a pedestal or burying her in blame. She wasn't divine, but she wasn't evil either. She was human. Imperfect, scarred, doing what she could with the broken tools life handed her. That doesn't erase the pain she caused, but it softens the tight grip of judgment. This isn't forced forgiveness. It's a release. Because holding on to the myth of her as either angel or villain keeps you stuck in a story that no longer serves you. And here's your truth now. You don't need a mother anymore. You need a version of yourself that can stand in the storm and still breathe. And that version won't magically appear. You have to shape it moment by moment, choice by choice. Want to start? Then pay attention. Notice when your emotions flare. Ask yourself, am I reacting to this person or to an old wound I still carry? When you crave unconditional love, ask, do I want to be loved or do I want to be repaired? When you give yourself up so someone else won't leave, whisper, who walked away from me first? Healing isn't a sunrise. It's a descent. It's mud and mirrors, and the voice of a child within you who's tired of being ignored. Sometimes the child cries. Sometimes it yells. Sometimes it sabotages everything just to be seen. Let it. Don't silence it with empty mantras. Don't numb it with hollow positivity. Give it room to speak. Ask it what it needed. And this time, give it to yourself. Kindness toward yourself isn't indulgence. It's the only thing that works when nothing else does. But to offer that kindness, you'll need to battle the part of you that has learned to scorn itself, to punish, to demand, to mimic the very pain it once endured. That's the cycle you must break. And breaking it isn't about theory. It's about presence, seeing yourself with new eyes, relearning how to respond, refusing to search for mothers in every face you meet. Because here's the truth. World won't fill the hole. It's not built to. It will judge you, forget you, test you. And in that chaos, you'll have to become the one who doesn't leave. Asterisk, asterisk, real emotional freedom begins the moment you stop acting from the wounds of your childhood and start choosing from your present strength. You're no longer that small, frightened soul longing for approval. You're no longer stuck in rooms that made you feel small. You don't need anyone's touch to validate your worth. But there's still a piece of you tender, hidden, that holds on. It waits. It hopes. It pleads silently. And while it's not at fault, it's your task now to bring it home. Not tomorrow. Not when it feels convenient. Now. Because the moment you feel ready may never come. Healing doesn't wait for stillness. It bursts through the noise, the confusion, the trembling. And when it arrives, it doesn't bring ease. It brings release, loss, a deep, aching quiet. Because part of healing is grieving the version of you who clung to suffering just to feel seen. Yes, it hurts. But staying stuck hurts more. So ask yourself, how much of your pain still belongs to the shadow of someone else? And for how long will you let that ghost hold the pen to your story? Don't make peace with the past by rewriting it. Make peace with yourself, with the version of you that's still waiting for something that's not coming. The true mother you need is not the one who raised you. It's the one you now create within you. And she is still waiting to be born. Since you're here, since you've dared to open your eyes where others keep theirs closed, let's go deeper. Beneath all, this pain is something even more binding. Invisible loyalty. Yes, a loyalty you didn't ask for, but one you've carried like an invisible tether. No matter how much progress you make, how many insights you collect, if you don't see this thread, it'll pull you back again and again. Here's the hidden mechanism. Your unconscious believes that becoming more than she was is a betrayal. That if you thrive where she suffered, you've crossed a sacred line. And this belief doesn't live in thought. It lives in feeling, in instinct. It was stitched into your emotional fabric from the very beginning. That your story is hers. That her sorrow must echo in you. Somewhere inside, you made a vow. Not out loud, but silently. It said, I won't shine if she couldn't. I won't soar if she stayed grounded. I won't fully heal unless she does too. That is the prison, and the cruel irony. That prison feels like love. This isn't about anger. It's about loyalty, a quiet, unconscious devotion that binds you to someone else's suffering. That's why you keep circling back to the same struggle. That's why your victories vanish just before they arrive. Because inside, a whisper says, if I rise, I leave her behind. But here's the truth you've avoided. Staying in pain doesn't honor her. Dimming your light doesn't redeem her. Sacrificing your joy doesn't heal her wounds. So why do you keep carrying what was never yours to begin with? In so many hearts, there's a quiet replaying of the same silent scene. A grown child holding back joy, dimming their light, afraid that fully living might betray someone who's no longer watching or never truly did. Deep down, it's as if they're whispering, "See? I'm hurting too, so you won't be alone in your sorrow." And that quiet loyalty, that's the real wound. Because the betrayal isn't in rising beyond her story, it's in continuing to live inside it. If you want to honor where you came from, then let it evolve. Let the life you were given multiply, not shrink. Let pain become insight. Let inherited shadows become the beginning of a new dawn. But to get there, you'll have to break a vow you never meant to make, a promise sealed before words. I won't go farther than you did. Break that not with blame, but with tenderness. Say it in silence, with reverence. Thank you for what you gave. And now, I walk my own road. That road doesn't lead to resentment. It leads to release. Because until you untangle yourself from that invisible allegiance, you will relive her hesitations. Her fears will echo in your own. Her silence will shape your voice. Her guilt, her love, her absence, her limits, they'll all play out through you. And you won't even know it. Have you noticed it? The patterns? That certain choices don't feel like yours? That maybe rejection stings more than it should, or success comes wrapped in guilt. Maybe you're not weak, you're loyal. But that kind of loyalty, it drains the life out of you. And when you finally dare to face it, there's a strange stillness. A void, because now, for the first time, you're separating who you are from who she was. And to the child in you, that feels like a betrayal. But to the adult you're becoming, it's a beginning. That moment is your rebirth. This isn't about cutting ties or turning cold. It's about changing the shape she takes inside you. Whether she was warm or distant, present or absent, the real issue isn't what she was, it's how you've held her inside your mind. If you don't examine that place, it becomes either a shrine or a cage. You either idolize her or lose yourself. To her, and both are distortions. Real healing begins when you dismantle the myth. And myths have many faces, the ever-sacrificing one, the flawless one, the haunting one, the ever-present one. None of them are real. They're echoes built in your psyche. What's real is this. She was once a daughter too. She carried her own pain. She was shaped by her own wounds, haunted by her own ghosts, and did the best she could with what she had. And you are not here to reenact her fate. You are here to break the cycle, to turn pain into wisdom, to bring light into the forgotten corners. Because what we pass on isn't what we own, or the blood in our veins. It's the patterns we never questioned, the emotions we never processed, the pain we never spoke aloud. That is the inheritance. And you have the power to end it. Asterisk here's the heart of it all. You can't rewrite the past, but you can rewrite the way it lives inside you. And that rewriting, it's not for her. It's for you. This isn't about cutting ties with your mother. It's about cutting ties with the distorted figure you carry within. That voice that whispers doubt every time you rise. That guilt that surfaces whenever you choose yourself over obligation. That's what needs to be broken. Because the wound you carry isn't your fate. What you choose to do with it, that's what shapes your life. So ask yourself, how much longer will you keep dancing to the rhythm of a pattern that drains you? How long will you carry a story that was never really yours to begin with? The time has come to use the pain not as a chain, but as fuel. Not to survive, but to live. And for that, there's one requirement. Courage. Courage to walk without the old rules. Courage to build yourself from scratch without needing someone else's approval, affection, or presence. Courage to stand in front of the mirror and finally say, "I've got me now." And when you do that, when you stop waiting and start showing up for yourself, you don't dishonor her. You honor the life she gave by actually living it. But just when you think you've let go, when you feel the old loyalty crack, another layer reveals itself. Emotional self-abandonment. Quiet, subtle, and deeply rooted. It hides behind discipline and strength, but it comes from the same place. When a child doesn't get the emotional care they need, they adapt. They fall silent. They disappear. And what once protected you becomes your prison. Have you listened to how you speak to yourself? The impossible expectations? The inner harshness? That's not strength, it's repetition. You became what you learned. And now that outdated imprint runs your inner world. Here's the harshest truth of all. No one is abandoning you now. You're the one doing it to yourself. Every time you push through exhaustion, silence your feelings, hide your needs, betray your limits just to be liked, to be safe, you are playing out the old script again. If I disappear, maybe I'll be loved. It's emotional vanishing, dressed up as strength. You've become your own enforcer, the one who doesn't allow softness, who punishes pain, who demands you carry everyone but yourself. And the cruel twist? The more you reject your needs, the more you crave someone else to save you. But that savior won't come. Not because the world is cruel, but because no one can give you what you refuse to give yourself. That's where everything changes. That's the revolution. Be the one who shows up. Love yourself the way no one did. Be the nurturer you never had. Teach yourself warmth. Give yourself space to feel without fear. Speak gently to yourself when you stumble. Offer comfort instead of criticism. Yes, it will feel strange. You've been taught coldness. You've lived under judgment. But none of that belongs to you. It's not your truth, it's borrowed code, passed down through generations. And now, finally, you can rewrite it. Asterisk, asterisk, want to break the cycle? Start here. Imagine a child standing before you, carrying the same pain you've carried, worn thin by life, barely holding on. What would you do? Would you shame them? Demand they toughen up? Or would you kneel, arms open, and let them fall into you without a word? Now understand that child is you. Even now, no matter your age, your achievements, your composure, somewhere within you, a part still waits, still hopes, still aches. And the harsh truth? No one is coming in the way. You've dreamed. Because this isn't about finding someone to save you. It's about becoming who you always needed. This is not sentimental fluff, it's grounded, deep psychology. Carl Jung knew it well. What you refuse to face becomes your fate. If you don't become aware of how you abandon yourself, you'll replay that pattern in every corner of your life. In love, in work, in silence. And here's the paradox. You only stop needing rescue when you become your own sanctuary. Is it difficult? Of course, because you weren't taught how. You were trained to excel, to impress, to perform. But no one showed you how to tend to the trembling voice inside. No one said, sit with your shadows. And that brings us to a truth no one likes to name. The critical voice within the internal mother who scolds, who rushes, who never thinks you're enough. That voice isn't your truth, but it's lived inside you long enough to feel like your conscience. And until you expose it for what it is, a broken echo, you'll keep thinking you're the enemy. You're not. You're just repeating what you thought was love. How do you silence that voice? You don't. You meet it. Not with resistance, but with awareness. Because whatever you fight, you strengthen. But what you face with honesty begins to unravel. Next time it whispers, don't run. Don't drown it out with forced affirmations or toxic optimism. Ask it instead, where did you come from? Who taught you to speak like that? Whose pain are you echoing? And in that moment of bold curiosity, you'll see it for what it is. A relic. A haunting that's been driving you without consent. And when you see it, you can finally choose not to follow it. That is awakening not in light, beams and chance, but in clarity it cuts through illusion. It's the moment you stop being your childhood's echo and start writing your own voice into the world. But be careful. This isn't about plastering over wounds with good vibes. It's not about pretending you're healed. It's about showing up even when it's messy. It's about refusing to abandon yourself when the ground shakes. That's how you start, with small, defiant acts of care. When exhaustion calls rest, don't push. When sadness visits stay, don't shame. When fear rises listen, don't run. That's the new language, the new parenting. A revolution in how you relate to your own heart. And it's how you begin to dissolve generations of inherited silence. I know it all feels overwhelming, like too much to carry, too much to change. But hear this, you don't need to do it perfectly. You just need to do it differently. Because if you don't end the pattern, no one else will. The shift you long for doesn't arrive from the outside, it's built in the quiet moments. When you rest, even though your guilt protests. When you draw a boundary, even if your voice shakes. When you whisper no to others just so you can finally say yes to yourself. That is love in motion. And in a world that conditions you to criticize, compare, and perform, that kind of love is radical. It's a rebellion. It's standing in front of your lineage and saying, this ends with me. Not out of pride, not out of ego, but because you chose to wake up. And once you wake up, the old spells lose their grip. Guilt doesn't stop you. Judgment doesn't steer you. That voice, the one that kept you small, fades into the distance. Because now, you're no longer chasing someone else's version of love. You're walking a new path. A path anchored in self-respect, in truth, in the kind of care you always deserved, but never knew how to ask for. The kind of love that doesn't demand your silence or sacrifice, only your presence. That is the inheritance worth passing on. When you reach this point, something within you knows it. You don't need proof. You feel it in your bones, in your breath, a subtle shift, a deep stillness, the kind that comes when you finally face the thing you spent a lifetime avoiding. It's not fireworks. It's not applause. It's silence, a sacred, uncluttered silence. Because for the first time, you've broken the noise of everything that was passed down to you. And suddenly, it makes sense why you struggled to feel whole, why peace always felt just out of reach. You were never broken. You were simply crowded, filled with voices that weren't yours, needs you inherited, fears you absorbed without knowing. But not anymore. What's left now is yours. Your voice, your rhythm, your space. And here's the beauty of it. You don't become someone untouched by pain. You become someone aware of it. And that awareness changes everything. Because the wound was never the problem. The problem was pretending it wasn't there. But when you stop running, when you look it in the eye, speak its name, walk through its fire, it doesn't vanish. It transforms. Asterisk, and at some point, without fanfare or applause, something shifts inside you. A new kind of strength is born, not the strength of control or detachment, but the strength of wholeness, of knowing that within you live both the cracked and the steady, the wounded and the wise, the parts that still tremble and the parts that know how to hold on. That's what real emotional maturity is. The moment you stop living as the child of the past and start becoming the parent of your present. You no longer feed off what you lacked. You begin building what you've chosen. That's not a surface-level change. It's a transformation that demands radical truth, unwavering courage, and a willingness to release every excuse and every ghost you've carried for too long. And now that you see it, now that something inside has been stirred, what will you do with it? Because this is where the video fades out, but your real story begins. The part no one will witness. A part that unfolds in your quiet decisions. In the way you pause before repeating an old response. In the softness with which you speak to yourself when no one's watching. That's the revolution. Not loud, not performative, but real. And once it begins, it doesn't need validation. Because that kind of freedom can't be borrowed or bought. So I'll leave you with one final phrase. A seed, if you're ready, to let it take root. When self-love grows from pain that has been transformed, it stops being self-help and becomes a silent revolution. If you made it here, you've crossed a threshold most never touch. You've dared to feel what others refuse to see. And if something deep inside you shifted, write it. Not for me, for you. Type the words, I am the end of the pattern. Say it aloud, whisper it, claim it. Because if you made it this far, you are no longer the person who pressed play. Something in you woke up. And that awakening? It's irreversible. So, yes, subscribe if you want. Not as a fan, but as a witness. To your own unfolding. Ring the bell. Not for entertainment, but for reminders of who you're becoming. Or maybe don't. Maybe you'll be too busy becoming someone new. Either way, take a step that terrifies you just a little. Sit in silence for 10 seconds. Cry without shame. Look at yourself without flinching. Because when you begin treating yourself differently, the world adjusts to match that energy. And if you don't believe it, try. But try from the depths. From the place where you finally know no one is coming, because you've already arrived. So, until then, until your next becoming, live in a way that makes the earth tremble. Not from fear, but from awe. You made it here, to this moment. And that changes everything.